Hey y'all, welcome to Alliecat Customs. Today I'm getting a set of Calvert Racing's split mono-leaf springs and a set of spring sliders installed on a 2000 Chevrolet Silverado, so y'all stick around. All right, y'all, so today's goal is to get the rear suspension hanging on this truck. What we're going to be doing is installing a set of Calvert Racing split mono-leaf springs and also installing a set of spring sliders to replace the tension style rear shackles on these trucks. So let's get started. First off, I got to bust the rivets off of the factory shackle hangers. So about to grab the grinder. So the easiest way I found to remove the head on these rivets without using a torch is actually to use a angle grinder with a cutoff wheel. I cut slits into the head of the rivets. Try to do an X pattern if I have room. If not, just any way I can cut as many slits as I can into the head of the rivets. Removes as much material as possible. That way it makes it easier to remove them later with a air chisel or something to try to knock the rest of the head of the rivets off. After grinding slits into the head of the rivets, I put a flat blade on my air chisel, and then I just get after it best I can, trying to knock the head of the rivets off. Sometimes you may have to go back and forth and do some more grinding if you haven't removed enough material off of the rivets. Then when you're done with that, then you change out to a pointed bit so you can drive the rivet out of the back side of the frame. And if you're lucky like I was, you get to shoot two of them out at one time. That was pretty interesting, trying to figure out what happened on that one. Once you get the shackle mounts removed, then you have the extra bracket that's attached to the bottom of the frame. So I just raise the truck up on the lift and repeat the process, only overhead, so it's slightly more sparks going down the back of my shirt. But not too difficult, it's a one rivet per bracket, and they just come off pretty easy. All right, so I got the old spring hanger cut off, and I had to shave down the end of the tube that sticks out. The factory tube of the cross member sticks outside of the frame on both sides, about a ½ inch or so. So I had to cut that off and smooth it up so that the back of the spring slider plate will mount. So it mounts up flush against the side of the frame, and it's got bolt holes for various ride heights. And I'm going to go ahead and put it as high as possible for the lowest possible ride height. In order to install this, you have to egg out a couple of the holes on the frame. It's just kind of generically stamped and holes cut in. The holes mostly fit, but because the left and right, the holes are offset on it. So I had to egg the holes out, but that's what I'm about to do right now. All right, so now that I got the spring sliders installed, it's time to install these leaf springs. And this is a Calvert Racing split mono leaf spring. And being a split mono, it's just a mono leaf spring instead of being a multi-leaf like what would have came on this truck from the factory. And they just split the mono leaf so they can have a different spring rate for the front and the rear. So that's the main gist of it. It comes, the spring kit comes with a aluminum bushing for the front end, so you can run the CalTracs bars with it. So it replaces a rubber bushing or poly bushing that goes straight to aluminum, which is great for racing because you don't have the deflection in an aluminum bushing like you do in the poly bushings or a rubber bushing. And for the rear, they come with a rubber bushing for the back. But I'm going to be installing some aluminum bushings for the back so I can use them with the spring sliders. So about to press them in place now and go ahead and get them bolted on. All right, I got my fancy aluminum bushings installed in the springs. And that's the part number for the Calvert split mono springs for this truck, in case you want to order some for yourself. So next up, I'm bolting on the actual spring slider bracket that mounts onto the frame side bracket. I just bolted on with the angle facing in line with the way the springs will move. So with this, it is slanted downhill towards the front of the truck, and just get it bolted on and square it up, and I move on to the next step. So when I disassembled the rear suspension of this truck, I removed the CalTracs from the factory leaf springs as a unit. So as I'm installing them, I'm installing the whole CalTrac as a unit on the Calvert split mono leaf springs. Being a Sasquatch, I can manhandle them pretty well. If not, you can disassemble the CalTracs and install it, but it's pretty easy. You just take the sleeve that goes through the front spring bushing and slide it through the cantilever arms on the CalTracs, and then once you get everything assembled, then you just put the whole spring and CalTracs assembly into the spring hanger on the front of the frame, and then you can continue installing the rear leaf spring. When I tried to install the passenger side leaf spring, the exhaust was in the way of the leaf spring, so I grabbed the last and apparently the dullest blade in existence for my Sawzall and proceeded to cut the exhaust off this truck so I can install the leaf spring. Alrighty, so now it's time to install the slider. So first, you line the leaf spring up in the slider, and then there is a long sleeve that will locate everything once you get it slid into place. Center it up in the slider mount, and then the leaf spring will actually rest on the slider mount with that sleeve. And then you take the slider bolt and put a flat washer and a roller bearing on the bolt. Slide the bolt through and into the channel of the slider, and then repeat the process on the other side of putting the bushing, the bearing into the onto the bolt, and then a flat washer, and then the lock nut, and then you just tighten the whole assembly up, and everything will fit up square in the trough on the slider. And then it's really just that simple to assemble the slider on this setup. All right, so now I got the spring slider installed. Now I can show you all a bit better about how they operate versus a tension style shackle, which was what originally came on this truck. And a spring slider, as you can see, just uses 2 roller bearings that slide back and forth on the mount itself, and that replaces a shackle. And like a tension style shackle, which would have came on this truck from the factory, the leaf spring mount is above the frame side of the mount, so it puts the shackle under tension. And also the factory shackle bushings, they're vulcanized. The rubber is vulcanized to the inside and outside sleeves, so that adds to the spring rate, if you will, about it. And it's all about trying to keep the suspension smooth riding, able to handle a payload capacity and all those kind of things, and give it a more forgiving and a repeatable ride when you're trying to drive. And these trucks, last hundreds of thousands of miles on the highway. Well, for drag racing, it's a very different game. And what we're trying to do is get as quick and movement as possible out of the suspension. So having these roller bearings allows it to quickly react to weight transfer movements in the truck, and also having it at the angle the way it is. It's not having to fight the rotation of a shackle and stuff. As the spring tries to flatten out, it can just follow the length, the slide on the slider itself, and it allows us just really easy movements. So it's not putting any extra drag or resistance on the leaf spring itself, so it just allows it to do its job quicker and faster. This truck will never pull a trailer. It never will have anything in the bed of the truck more than a couple of coolers and some beach chairs if he takes it to the beach or goes to the racetrack or something like that. So it's not something that he's going to use as a truck anymore. It's just a play toy, a weekend warrior drag racing truck, or something he drives back and forth to work. So these will last. They don't last nearly as well as stock springs do, but hey, we're not trying to make one last 100,000 miles. We're trying to get a number at the drag strip. So I think he's going to really enjoy this, and can't wait to actually see it in operation. Unfortunately, because I have a whole lot more to do to the truck, I won't get to show y'all this in operation right now. But once I get the truck together, I will go back through the suspension work of this truck, and I'll show you how these work and also how the CalTracs work. So I'm gonna move you up front and show you the CalTracs and kind of give a little bit of explanation on those two. Then we'll wrap it up. All right, so without having the axle in view, you can actually see the lower CalTrac mount and how it relates to the leaf spring here. So with the axle sitting on top of the spring here, what you have is the U-bolts will go through this and it clamps it all together. And so as the axle tries to rotate this away, it's going to push the CalTrac bar forward, back up to this part right here, so that it can rotate here and here. And what that does is any energy pushed forward against here, it's going to try to rotate this lever here, which is going to push pressure back down onto the leaf spring. So as I said earlier, leaf springs will try to twist and rotate up. So you, instead of having a U in the spring, you could actually start to bow this part of the spring up as it rotates the axle backwards on launch. So what that does is it pushes here, and that rotates the pressure like a cantilever arm, pushes pressure back down and applies it back to the top of the leaf spring to force it back straight. So that kind of works. It starts to work a lot like a ladder bar, and these traction bars are so great because not only do they stop wheel hop, but they're actually adjustable to where you can add and remove the amount of hit on the tire. So it's really a nice setup for drag racing, for leaf springs. Cars that have split monos and CalTracs. There is some stupid fast cars running leaf springs. So I really can't wait to get this truck running to see what this pickup truck will do on this setup. But when I get the truck all set up, we'll go through like that, some more of the in and outs about how to make it hit harder and hit not as hard if you're having traction problems. So we can try to get the best launch, the best 60-foot time out of this truck. So just wanted to give a quick rundown on what was going on without having the axle here, so you actually you can kind of see what's all going on without having an axle in the way and trying to imagine it. So wrap it up. All right, y'all, so this wasn't too bad of an install. This is a mock-up install because, like I said earlier, I do have to make sure that the rider height is correct on the truck, so we may have to take it back apart and adjust some things to try to get the rider height where we want it to be at. But as far as right now, it's good to go, and I can move on to the next part of the build on this truck. We got more parts coming in. As we speak, we got parts ordered. Chandler has parts coming in for this truck. So that wraps it up for this video. I hope y'all found it interesting, and hope y'all found it helpful. If you did, make sure you like, subscribe, and keep on coming back, because I have a whole build series on this truck, and it's getting larger by the day as more plans keep adding to this build. So hope y'all enjoyed it, and see y'all next time right here at Alliecat Customs.